There we go. All right, so I'll do my stuff. G'day, everybody. You are listening to a careers advice webinar by the Royal Australian Chemical Institute, the professional association for chemists in Australia. I'm Dave Samet, coordinator of the RACI Mentoring Programme. Today's talk is about career lessons from recent graduates, young scientists who have completed their studies, then gone out and found their first career position. I'm joined today by four wonderful young chemists, all of whom, it should be noted, have been active participants in the RACI Mentoring Programme in recent years. Rebecca Vogel completed honours in forensic science at UTS and is now a research assistant in analytical chemistry at the University of Sydney, where her focus is on the analysis of cannabinoids using LC-MS. And how good am I for being able to pronounce that first go? Mohi Karam and Manish Sriram both completed PhDs at Uni in New South Wales, and coincidentally, both also took a business path after graduation. Mohi and Manish are both working at Salesforce, with Mohi as a solutions engineer and Manish making the most of his passion for sales. Anthony Katselis possibly had the most pressure of any mentee in the RACI program last year, because I was his personal mentor. Anthony graduated with honours from the University of Sydney, and I don't need to read that, I know that. Now a development chemist at Donna Nobel. It's a role that most of us would aspire to. I mean, who wouldn't want to spend their working life blowing crap up? So before I kick off, I'll note that Zoom has a chat function and a question and answer function. So as we go along, you can answer questions. Goodness gracious, you can ask questions for the panel to address anywhere along the way, and we'll do that as they come up. So Rebecca, Mohi, Manish, and Anthony, thank you all of you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
It's all good.
Okay, so I'm going to go around. I'm going to ask questions of various people tonight, and I'll direct them as we go, just so that you know who's being asked. Rebecca, just to kick off, how does it feel to be done with university?
Oh, it's pretty good. I mean, I'm kind of back at university, but in a different position. So, yeah, it was a relief, but at the same time, having the freedom of deciding when to do your work is also really nice compared to the work environment.
Absolutely. What about you, Manish? You have to unmute.
Yeah, it's really good to kind of be out of uni. I think I did enjoy it a lot when I was there, but now being in, for me, a corporate environment and being able to work and, finding a career that I like has definitely been, really enjoyable for me.
Absolutely. Now, Mohi, you always know you're a favourite of mine. How have you enjoyed the transition?
Thanks, Dave. Actually, I have to first confess that I am not completely done with uni, so I'm still writing my thesis because I started my job when I finished with the experiments, and now I'm working full-time and writing the thesis in the same time.
Right.
But it feels great because, especially for me, because I changed my field, it looks a little bit harder when I was looking for a job, but now that I see that I could do that, and it was a big milestone for me. So it feels great. It's amazing.
Absolutely. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. What about you, Anthony? I mean, you were a mature age student. You started in the world, you went back.
Yeah, I was going to say, I had a break from industry, as you know, and I went back to university. So that was a bit of a wake up right there, a bit of a shock. But after 4 years of full-time study, research project done and down, thesis out, it is actually good. It's a relief to be back in the workforce, and it doesn't actually take long to get back into the swing of the corporate life. So I'm quite enjoying it. The dynamics of different personalities are so different to university. Yeah, it's great.
And to do all that with a young child at home,
Thanks.
Okay, so kicking on with you there, Anthony. How are you enjoying your job?
Look, it has been an exceptional experience to date. Of course, in the industry that I'm in, it's very heavily regulated by a lot of safety aspects. So I spent a good few days working on that side of things. But look, they're, like I said to you earlier, they are so supportive and they're so encouraging of learning and trying new things. They straight away taking me from the desk to the lab. I'm in there really getting my hands dirty. I've got so many people surrounding me, just really pushing me so hard, and I understand they're going to push me into my own project in, I would say, the next coming week or two. So, yeah, look, it's fantastic.
That's excellent. That's excellent. Actually, I'm going to ask you the fun question. One of the pre-questions we got was, what's the biggest mistake you've made so far in the workplace? I'll say, in my first week in the workplace, I broke $1,500 worth of equipment.
Oh, God. Well, I can't say that I've caused a fire or actually injured somebody else or myself, so that hasn't happened yet. In fact, explosives are quite safe in the capacity we're working in. So look, I've made some dumb mistakes. I mean, you do that in your first weeks of work. That's pretty much the gist of it. I do say too much sometimes. I embarrass myself, but hey, okay, so I ate too much at a morning tea. That's about the worst of it.
Okay, so Manish, what's the biggest thing that you've learnt so far?
It's a good question. I suppose the biggest thing I've learned so far, on top of kind of just following your passion, it's good to have open communication with the people that are helping you. So whether it's your manager or someone else, it's good to have that open communication and telling them where your head is at, whether it's good or bad, or what you want, because they're the people that can help you kind of guide you forward, kind of advise you what options you have available, take you through the goods and bads, and help mentor to make you obviously better.
That's a really good point, and it's really good to be able to say to you to always say to your colleagues, if there's something you don't understand, just say so, right? It's much worse if you try and muddle through than if you just say, could you say that again, or could you explain it back to me. I used to once have an employee who everything I instructed, I learned I had to say to him, now repeat that back to me, because he would always say yes. If I said, do you understand? He said yes. But if I said, repeat it back to me, then I could tell whether he understood. And it was made my life hell, because I would rather, if he didn't understand, I'd rather he just tell me. So
yeah, absolutely.
What about you, Mohi? What's the biggest thing that you've learned so far?
Well, so because I'm part of a graduate program, so most of the program that I'm doing and a big part of my everyday life at work is about learning. So I learned a lot about the company itself, but I learned a lot about myself as well, because when I started working, it was my first corporate job, and it's so much different to the academia and where I came from. So I started learning a lot about myself, how I like to work, how I like to communicate with people, and it involved a lot of personal development as well. So yeah, so much learning going on.
Absolutely. We'll get a bit of feedback there. Rebecca, what's the most noticeable difference in your working environment? Well, actually, that's probably the wrong person to ask, isn't it? I'm saying, what's the most noticeable difference in your working environment from when you're at uni? Well, you're still at uni, yeah. But how about this one? I'll change the slide slightly, and because the corollary question is, are there any big culture shocks for you? Because you, like Mohi, and I don't know, maybe Manish as well, you were born overseas. So, what culture shocks have you encountered coming into the Australian workplace?
Well, since I've been here for nearly 7 years now, I think the culture shock hasn't been that dramatic. I mean, there's a lot of different people from different countries here, but I think that's Australia in general. So I don't think it was a big of a shock coming to this workplace. But going back to your other question, what's the biggest difference between university and my current job? I feel like for me, it is just that I can actually apply the skills that I learned during university and then think further. If I encounter a problem, why would that be? So actually applying what I learned, and not just, you learn so many things at university, but you think you might never apply them. But I actually do. So I think that's a really, really good thing.
That's well said. And I will say 3 years of university mathematics that I've never used, so I know exactly what you're saying. Well, I'd like to ask the same question of you, Mohi. What's the most noticeable difference in your working environment now from university? And are there any big culture shocks?
Well, in terms of culture shock, I agree with Rebecca, because it's Australia anyway. So the culture shock is when you start and you enter Australia. So it's not a big difference in terms of culture, but there is a big difference between university and at least Salesforce, because Salesforce has a really great culture and people are much more supportive. And because I come from science and now I'm in business, so the culture is so different. So the way that you have to talk, the way you actually process the data, everything is different. So it's actually funny, because when I started as an intern and then I continued as a grad, and we had to present about what we have done when we were intern. And when I was presenting about everything that I've done throughout my internship, I noticed that my presentation style is so much different to everyone else in our team. And it was like I was presenting as a scientist. And the way that I processed the data and the way I was presented was so much too different to everyone else. And it's mainly because I think as a scientist, you care more about the results than the process. Whereas here in Salesforce, and I think it's about something about business in general, people care a lot about the process as well. So this is something that I'm working on, and it's been a big transition for me to adapt to the new culture and to the new thinking ways. So yeah, that's the biggest culture shock for me, I guess.
That's interesting. That's a good insight, Mohi. So Manish, was there anything in your first few weeks of working that took you by surprise?
To be honest, I mean, it's kind of a little bit on with what Mohi said, seeing as we work in the same place. Not in terms of kind of a culture shock thing, but the culture of the corporate workplace. So, I mean, before coming here, I had heard so many things about corporate work environment and whatnot. So didn't really know what to expect, but coming, I mean, I don't know about anyone else, but Salesforce, it was incredibly welcoming. And I think as a company, I mean, it's probably a big tech company thing, to be honest, but they live and breathe their values. So, when they say equality, they mean it. They have events every month or twice a month for all sorts of different cultures. So, I mean, for example, yesterday we had Multicultural Day, and a few, like last month we had something else and every culture is always represented. We have different groups for every different kind of thing. So we have something called Faith Force, which is every denomination of faith has their is spoken for in this group, and they run events across the entire, and it's global, but we run events in Sydney, in Melbourne, and whatnot, where we had Hanukkah, we had Christmas, we had Easter, we had Diwali, we had all of them. And so the culture is the one thing that I think is the biggest thing that I did not expect. And just how open and welcoming. So as Mohi said, coming from science and a PhD in academia, but also university, where you're a student, so there's not a lot of support in terms of guiding you kind of outside of studying. So we're over here coming into this and seeing, being guided with what you want in your career, what you want outside of that, how they can help you, how they can empower you. That was a huge thing in making you feel welcome, but also supported, and also kind of making it clear what options you have ahead in your career.
Yeah, look, that is great. That is certainly one of the advantages of big companies. They'll spend a lot of time to think about and articulate their values and their systems. But I think any good company goes out of its way to try and create a positive environment. And hopefully we can all look forward to that in our careers. Certainly, I know in my company I make an effort. What about you, Anthony? Was there anything in your first few weeks that took you by surprise?
Yeah, look, on Manish's note too, corporate culture, I mean, it's such a welcome change to what I'm used to. And from what I came from, it was very much about commercial. sales, maintenance, that sort of thing. It's very competitive. I don't feel that at all where I am. And, I definitely see yet again that the mentality of the workforce definitely channeled from the head, from the person at the top. And the guy running the place he's just such an exceptional leader. He's got a learning mindset. He's got a research-focused mindset and a development mindset too, and that is development of the people. So I really do feel as though everyone's encouraged to pursue their own interests. And that's one of the key focuses there. Everyone is given the intellectual freedom to essentially choose a path of your own within the department based on your own personal interests. But on top of that too, corporate culture, culture in general. I mean, where I'm based, I'm out in the bush, so it is. I mean, it's very regional Australian demographic, and it's something different to be getting used to from University of Sydney, which is so multicultural and so many views shared, and it's very different where I am now. But that itself is a shock too if you're not used to it. So,
Sure. Now, we've had one very interesting question come in from the audience, and I will address it in just a couple of questions' time. So just so the questioner knows that. All right. Well, let's ask the question. I already know about Mohi. Manish, when, if at all, in your university career, did you decide what you wanted to do after graduation?
That's a good question. I think my answer to that is a bit different because obviously I had the postgraduate part of it as well. So when I did my chemistry undergraduate degree, I was absolutely 100% sure that I was never going to go do a PhD. And that was the only thing I was sure about. And then I did honours, the research year in my 4th year, and I actually loved what I worked on. I loved the challenge, the idea that I could commercialize the research I was working on. And I just enjoyed it. So I decided to give it a go. And then during my PhD, obviously being in it is a lot different. I feel like the honours year was more of a teaser. And then going into the PhD, being hit with everything, I still enjoyed everything I did, but I think it was about halfway through, I realized I enjoyed certain aspects of the PhD better than the research. So, I mean, research was fun and challenging and I loved solving problems, but I liked, working on grants, presenting, trying to build the relationships and collaborating, working as a team, a lot more than I did actually being at a bench and researching. And I think that also carried across because I also worked part-time while I was there in retail. I really enjoyed, it never felt like work. And then also on top of that, I had this little coffee business that I had going throughout university in the PhD. And I think basically from halfway throughout my PhD to the end of it, I was becoming more and more sure that I wanted to go towards sales, business development, commercialization, rather than the actual research part of things.
Yes, and of course, you, like a couple of people, actually came to see me during the course of the year to talk about how you could pursue those type of career paths, which is just a really excellent strategy. There's nothing like doing your research. Now, Mohi, of course, you were doing your PhD, and I think you possibly a little less certain about what you wanted to do when the university finished, when the PhD finished. And yet here you are. So tell me a little bit about that. I mean, how did you come about choosing this?
Well, so when I started looking for a job, I was same as Manish. I was actually enjoying some aspects of research, but not all of it. So there were parts that I was sure that I don't want to do anymore. Like when you do research, the thing that I wasn't too happy about was that it's really slow. So I wanted to work in a more fast environment. And also I'm a result-driven person. So I like to be able to see the result of what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. So being in research wasn't actually giving me that aspect. But also I really liked problem solving. So when I came across with this role at Salesforce, it actually sounds like a really great fit for me. But the way that I came across the role was really like, it wasn't something planned, because I just met someone from Salesforce and they introduced me to the role and I found it such a perfect fit, and then I applied. But it wasn't something that I was actually looking for and having my eye on it.
Fair play, fair play. So what about you, Rebecca? How did you find your current job?
How did I find my current job? Through a network. The job was actually, it was existent at some point in time, but at the point where they met me, they weren't really looking for anyone. And so I think about 2 months later, they then approached me and asked whether I was interested in joining them as a research assistant. So yeah, it's really good to have a network.
Absolutely. In fact, everybody, hands up where network played a factor in you getting your first job. Right.
Definitely. I mean, not directly, but Dave helped me a lot with resume and meeting people, building skills. So network always helps, whether it's to help you, as a third party, or introduce you to people.
Yeah. What about you, Anthony? How did you find your Dino Nobel job?
Oh, see, I've got the best answer for this right here, Dave. You didn't know this, but so actually it was at a university research group Christmas party that I got a chance to talk with the director of the research group. Like, it's quite a large research group of about 30 people. We're just chatting about things, and I mentioned that I was applying for a few jobs here and there, and I just asked him, hey, do you think Donna Nobel might be needing someone? He said, I'll ask them for you. We're having a conversation about this, about a lot of things, but it just came up. I asked him the question, do you think they might be interested in looking for someone? And he said, I'll find out. He picked up the phone. He gave the R&D manager a call and said, hey, I've got this guy in my research group. He's interested in working. He works within my group. So he comes recommended. And he said, would you give him a go? And sure enough, within a week, I was lined up for an interview, and the HR people were beating down my phone. And so, I mean, really, it really does highlight the importance of the network. If I didn't ask that question, if I didn't go to that Christmas party, if I didn't put in the effort, this job wouldn't be, I wouldn't be in this job, wouldn't be where I am right now. So I'm grateful. Very grateful.
Well, you know how I hammered that point. Okay, so the question from the floor. Time and again, I hear that chemistry has little potential as far as money goes. Is that why a lot of chemistry students go into commerce? What's your opinion on this? Now, I'm going to ask...
Can I...
Well, okay, go for it, Anthony.
Yeah, I totally don't agree with that, and I'm not going to disclose, where I'm at financially or anything. But I think it's less about stop thinking so much about chemistry and science jobs don't pay. I think you have to look a little bit more deeper into things like the organisation that you might be looking to work for. So I can say right now, the company that I'm working for is very how do I say, they recognise all of your experience and they'll take care of you accordingly. Look, I know if you aim for an entry-level job, which I think is what you might have to do most of the time, stop focusing on the fact that it's an entry-level job and it's got a low salary. It doesn't take long to get into that entry-level job. Remember, foot in the door, work hard. You'll be pushed through. You'll be given a pay rise. You'll be given more and more opportunities. I don't know. I just don't believe the old saying that in chemistry there's no money and that's why people move. I don't believe it. Sorry.
Yeah, I would personally.
I agree.
Yeah. Sorry, Rebecca, go for it.
There's something that someone said to me recently, and I thought it was very good. When you go to a job, there's theoretically 3 things that you want from a job. It's either good pay, or you want satisfaction, so happiness, or you want to be learning something. And to stay in a job or to get a job, you want to have at least one of those things. So if you're learning something, it doesn't really matter how much you get paid or whether you're happy, because you'll progress, to the next role with what you've learned in this role. If you earn a lot of money, you don't necessarily need to be happy or learning something because you're getting paid a lot. But if you really enjoy your job, then it might not be as important as to how much you earn or whether you're learning something. So, money is one thing, but really enjoying your job is another. So focusing on how much you get paid, especially as an entry level, like if you've just finished your bachelor, you'll always most likely get paid little compared to what you'll get paid later in life. And what you'll get paid later in life really depends on how much work you put in the beginning when you start your job. Because through your career, you're going to have so many paths that you can take. And so in the beginning, don't focus on the big money yet.
Yeah. Manish, you got something to say?
Yeah. I wanted to say as well, like, I completely agree with both Anthony and Rebecca. I don't think that's why a lot of people leave chemistry. And it's something I heard a lot, especially, in a PhD, everyone is worried about that same thing is, can I get a job? Can I stay in science? Can I stay in chemistry? If I'm completely honest, I agree completely with what Rebecca said, in the sense that you shouldn't just follow it for the money, because if you follow your passion, as I did to go into sales and business development, I wasn't only just looking for a tech company. I looked at pharmaceutical companies, chemistry companies. This is just what I ended up coming across at the time. But if you follow your passion, you're going to enjoy doing what you do, and that means you're going to do it better. And then you're going to end up falling into, new opportunities in new roles that come your way. And that's where, money becomes a factor, because we all start similarly at the beginning, right? As a graduate, you're all going to start on, within plus or 10,000 of each other roughly. And that's just a random number. But it's that passion and following that's really going to give you happiness, because even if, you may not start off at a high salary, you're enjoying what you do, and then you're going to end up there. And I do know plenty of friends that have finished their science degrees and gone on into chemistry and science and are still earning fairly well.
Yeah. And look, I would
also
always
with chemistry, it's not about, doing chemistry. Yeah, you're doing chemistry, but at the same time, you're learning so many different skills. You're learning analytical skills, you're learning problem solving skills. And throughout your degree, you start doing chemistry and you think, yeah, I'm going to do chemistry. But throughout your degree, you might realize, I'm actually really good at business or something like that. So, and then you go into business. So, starting chemistry, like if you really want to do chemistry in the end, okay, follow that. But there's other skills that you'll get out of your chemistry degree that you can apply in other fields.
Look, can I just add to this? There's so much more to being a chemist or chemistry than being a lab technician and doing QC analysis. And I think that seems to be where people look for the first job. Actually, that's not the only entry point into a chemistry job. In my case, I got straight into an R&D position. I did my honours degree, so I had demonstrated as a research experience. But, look beyond the lab technician as the only job you'll ever get in chemistry. It's so not true. And in a company like Incitec Pivot, which is the parent company of Donna and Bell, they own manufacturing plants all over the country and in fact all over the world too. So, a strong aspect of what we do is also support operations of those plants around the country. So, and that goes as far as, the manufacturing process. It becomes such a broad area. So stop focusing, I suppose, on QC or quality control as the only job you'll ever get. It's just so not true.
Yeah. Another question from the floor. How important is doing higher level degrees like honours, masters and PhD? Do they open more doors? Well, we've got 2 PhDs right before us. Did they open more doors for you?
Well, I have to say doing PhD has some advantages and some disadvantages. And then I think on the positive side, you get to develop some transferable skills that are really valuable. You get to work on your time management. So if you say that you are a PhD, people right away think that you are a genius. You have good time management skills. You have good problem solving, critical thinking. These are the skills that you can really work on and develop during PhD. But then whether it's necessary opens up new doors for you, I am not sure about that. Like sometimes because after doing a PhD, you may be a little bit overqualified for some of the jobs, but you might not be as well. So
Look, I've got a lot to say on this one, and rather than me intervening too much, I'm just going to suggest people go to look at my blog, my careers blog. I have an entire posting that I call Dr. No. The short answer is never do study just to get a job. Do study because you want to, because you love it, because you're going to get something personally out of it. But study is a long, slow, expensive way to achieve the same outcome that can be achieved by different means.
Absolutely. And I think, sorry, Dave. I was going to say, to go on from that, I completely agree. I would never say do honors, masters, or PhD just to open a door or not. And it really depends. The answer to that, it depends on what you want to do. Like me, you may decide you never wanted to do something, you want to do something, but you're always going to change as you grow professionally and personally. And a PhD may open the door for you if you want to go into an R&D job, if you want to go into academia, but it may not open any doors for you elsewhere. And I think personally, the PhD, I've learned a lot of skills and it's helped me progress in my career, but it didn't help me get my career. So, I mean, I would just say never do it. And again, exactly what Dave said, never do it because you think it's going to open a door. Do it because you want to do it for yourself.
Can I just chime in with a little bit of a different reply there? I mean, I can definitely say that me doing honors was the clincher in the deal for me getting my job. And of course, for the job, they wanted a minimum requirement of a master's or a PhD to get the position. I only had an honors, but partly because I was recommended. I mean, that's just, breaking down the barrier to get an interview. But I feel that I won the deal when I was in there interviewing, and I was able to very clearly communicate how the skills that I had learned in my honors year directly translated to something useful that they might be looking for in somebody. And even, I was able to communicate specific fields of interest that I had and how that was relevant to what they were doing. Specific instrumentation that I was able to use that someone who had just done an undergraduate would never even get exposure to. So essentially, I walked in there primed and prepped and armed with basically what they wanted, and that's how I won the deal. So, honors over undergraduate, I think there's a big leg up in the number of opportunities you'll get access to. Personally, honors to PhD, yes, there are high-level research skills you'll develop, as you guys can confirm there. But you got to ask yourself: is doing that going to get me where I want to go? If so, then go for it. But for me, honors is more than enough.
Yeah. Well, it is actually a point that of the 5 people talking tonight, 2 of us are working in R&D, and neither of us have a PhD.
Exactly.
Tim has asked the question, do you think it's easier to get a job in Australia in R&D or internationally? I've heard the industry here is quite small. Now, it's possibly a little unfair to ask you guys that question because still being early in your career, you don't necessarily know about the full breadth of industry. I might jump in on that one and just answer Tim, regardless of the market, regardless of the size of the market or whether the market is good or bad, a candidate who knows what they are doing can find a great job anytime. And it's not about the size of the market, it's about knowing how to go out and find a job. And there's a lot that we teach in the RACI Careers program. I would encourage you to be active and to watch some of the other webinars and the stuff that we offer, because it's exactly there to teach you how the system works so that you can go out and get those great jobs. Okay? Now I'm going to move on to another pre-planned question. I know we've got a couple more still waiting for us, but I'm going to get to them as we get to that part in the stuff. Mohi, what role did planning play in you finding a job?
Well, as I said, definitely I didn't plan for this job, but I knew what I'm after. I knew what aspects my future job I would like to have. And this is an important thing, even for the last question that you asked. I think you have to think what you want and what makes you happy in your life. So it involves a lot of self-awareness. So when you start when you start looking for your new job, this is a process that you go through. You start asking questions from yourself. What are my values? What I want to achieve with my future job? And when you get to answer those questions, it makes it easier for you to find what kind of job you want. So for me, when I started, I realized that I'm not enjoying research anymore because of these reasons. And then I started thinking about my value, what I want to do, what I want to achieve. And then after articulating my values, I realized that, so I want a job that ticks these boxes for me. And then when I came across to this role, I realized that, okay, this is a great fit. And I tried my best to get it. So I guess first you need to find out what you want and what you want to do in future, and then try hard to achieve it.
Excellent. Excellent. So who else wants to have a go at that question? Okay, all right. A little pat on our back for ourselves. How has the mentoring program helped you in your journey, if at all?
Could I start with that one?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, look, yeah, Dave was my mentor, and yeah, look, so much advice along the way. You know, regular meetings, kept him up to date with where I was at. You know, he gave me some suggestions on where to go, who to speak to. You know, the encouragement to go to networking events, establishing the networking events for us to go to, the prepping and the priming and everything before it, all the skills. You know, it was like hands down, you know, the most useful thing that I could have gone to outside of university and learning those skills there. You know, just getting those opportunities, meeting these great people that you see in front of you right here. You know, you'll forever be part of my network, and you never know, at some point in the future, you know, one of you guys might contact me, or I might contact one of you guys and say, hey, what's going on? You know of any jobs going on, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, really, I mean, it's all about networking when it comes down to it, and you've really given us the skills to develop that network, to start that network in our field.
Absolutely. Now, I will actually say, because one of our questions has come in, how can undergraduates look for experience and build networks? Well, it's just about getting out there, get into your professional society. I will note that the RACI has a networking evening specifically for students to meet with industry representatives on the 24th of June. If you look up at our website, raci.org.org.au, and you go to the events page, then you'll be able to see that and it's a free event for students, and we lay on the beer and the pizza. So
yeah, and just to
going, yeah, Manish.
Yeah, and just to jump onto that as well, I think especially now is as easy a time as it is ever to be able to network. Because of internet and social media, we have access to the resources to see what people are doing, what businesses are doing, and they promote a lot of these things. So it could be as simple as going to Facebook and trying to find groups, or LinkedIn, trying to find groups that are doing things that you're interested in, and just tagging along to the event. You can even try going to meetup.com. They have a lot of interesting different groups there where young professionals looking, or young graduates looking for jobs, or business professionals, or there are lots out there. And a lot of these things are built exactly for this, to help you kind of build your networks, have a chat. And just to add on to kind of what Dave was saying or asked earlier about the mentoring program, and I've told this to everyone that kind of asked me my advice on it as well, it's absolutely helpful. And that's the reason I'm here today, because it did help me. And, you know, Dave helped me with my resume, helped me kind of practice my interview questions. My mentor advised me on a whole lot of things when it was coming in time to prepare for that transition, the last 6 months of my PhD and moving into applying for jobs. And when I didn't get the first job that I applied for, and all through those things, having someone who's been through that, who has that experience to guide you through it and give their advice, is priceless.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Now, I will also say, timing-wise, now is the ideal time to network if you are going to be graduating at the end of this year, right? You sow the seeds now for the crop for the harvest that you intend to reap the next season. If you are already graduating around about now, be aware that we have an intensive careers workshop on Saturday, this Saturday the 25th, which is available both in person and via video conference. And again, that's on the website. So, you know, we do a lot. We're really out there trying to help you. So we encourage you to take it up. Rebecca,
I actually want
Mohi,
to add a little bit to that. In terms of how much the mentoring program helped me, I would say it helped me a lot. The first thing that it helped me to do was it helped me to come out of my comfort zone, because it's hard for all of us to start networking. Networking is not something that we all feel comfortable about. And I would say that it was through networking that I found my job. And I learned how to expose myself, although I don't feel comfortable doing it. And I learned a lot of it through the mentoring program. And also one thing that I did and helped me a lot as well was I organized a networking night at UNSW with Dave's help. And it helped me because I contacted different people to get sponsors, and it helped me to start building my network and working on it. So it's something I just recommend you to get out of your comfort zone and expose yourself to whatever event that you see. Even if it doesn't really look relevant to you, or if it's not something that interests you in the first view, just go there and look it as a practice of networking.
Okay.
If I can add to that as well, if you go to as many different events as possible, it really showed me what kind of jobs are out there, because, you know, you study chemistry, but you don't actually know what jobs there is that you can apply for. And so if you go to all the different, I mean, the RACI has so many different sections of chemistry, environmental or analytical. If you go to their meetings, you can find out what other people do, and it gives you an idea of what's possible for you.
Absolutely.
And if anything too, just to add on what Moe was saying, I mean, networking is really just a skill like any other, a skill that needs practice. And, you know, to get the tools that you need to learn to be able to put that to practice, well, that's what you get from the mentor program. And then you go out there and practice. And in fact, you know, you guys gave us an opportunity effectively, you know, let's say at a safe networking space that was very comfortable, a place that we could all go and we could chat and meet new people. There was a few of us there, so we could always sort of lean on each other. It was a really great environment to get out there and have your first experience of networking if you haven't done it yet. So yeah, again, just you need the opportunity to go out there and do it. Mentor program will create those opportunities for you, and they'll help you get underway to get your networking skills into practice.
Yeah, and we do have an earlier webinar from this year, which is exactly, you know, how to network, how to walk into a room full of strangers and make useful connections. Okay, Mohi, how many resumes do you think you sent out in your graduating year?
10?
That's an excellent number.
Yeah.
You know, 10 resumes, one job. That's a great ratio.
Yeah, I think because I wasn't actually just randomly applying for all the jobs that was available. I was just looking for the one that I think I'm a suitable candidate for, and I was trying toward that, like working really hard toward that.
Yeah.
So I didn't.
Rebecca?
2.
That's great. See, look, I mean, this is the point. You don't have to spray resumes out there. If you do a well-crafted application for a targeted job that fits you, you don't have to. Anthony, how many would you have done? You did more, I know.
Yeah, I did a lot more. I think probably closer to 40, but in actual truth, I mean, you remember I was going for the defense program, Dave, and we sat down and you were giving me all the coaching, which was fantastic. I actually was so certain I was going to get that job. I ended up getting merit listed and didn't get it, but I got a little bit desperate in that sense. I kind of invested too much in that, and then towards the end, I just started firing resumes out. Actually, I got a number of interviews, but it wasn't any of those that I ended up taking in the end. But yeah, it's closer to 40. And I definitely agree with what you said along the way, Dave. You know, they're not 40 quality applications. They certainly weren't. There was probably more like 5 quality applications, which I would say probably ended up in at least 5 decent interviews. So,
yeah. Absolutely. Now, from the floor, we've had the question, I've been to some interviews, and after the final interview, I've been informed that I've not been selected as they have selected a more experienced person. It's happened to me 2 or 3 times. I'm wondering if any of you have experienced the same, and how did you improve? Now, before you guys answer, I just want to say, you've been to 2 to 3 interviews, you're a winner. Just getting the interview is a success in itself. And once you've been to a few and you've done those interviews well, you will get a job. Okay? But coming to the question, Manish, he says they got more experience. I mean, this is particularly something that faces PhD candidates, because although you have higher education, you have less experience from someone of the same age.
Yeah, so I mean, I did want to answer this question, and I think Mohi's going to be a good one next. She has a good story on this. But for me, I think it really sucks when you get knocked back. It feels like a personal hit to you as well. One of the first jobs I applied for, I think I applied for about 6 or 7 jobs when I was looking. Some of them, I think about 4 of them I didn't even hear back from. And then I got an interview with this other tech company, and I went through 5 stages of interviews with them. And every stage I went through, I was told, you're basically a shoo-in for this job. And there were 3 more interviews left. So I'd met with the CEO of the company in the States. And then I was basically just told, oh, you didn't get the job. We can't give you any feedback. That's it. And for me, that sucked, because not only did I not get the job after 5 interviews, so well over 5 hours of invested time, plus all the time I invested in preparing for it, I didn't get any feedback on how to improve. But my advice would be is, as Dave said, getting the interview itself is a huge achievement, and going through different rounds of interviews as well is a huge achievement. Sometimes I would say the business won't choose you. Maybe it's their more experience, but also they think about other things as well. Like, will this person fit into the culture of the team? Will this person actually, enjoy working here? And things like that we don't always consider when we're applying for a job. In the anxiety, the nervousness of kind of being there and being in an interview, we kind of forget that these people, the managers, the hiring manager, whoever it is looking for a bigger picture. And honestly, it's just about kind of picking yourself up. And one, I would ask the recruiter or whoever tells you no to try and get feedback, because usually they have quite honest feedback. If you don't get it, it sucks, but you can kind of try and be critical and see what happened, and see if they have any advice, or if anyone you met along the way, try add them on LinkedIn and be nice. So, if a recruiter says, no, you didn't get this job, add them on LinkedIn, send them a thank you note, because you never know if they might find you another position down the line, because ultimately it's not that they didn't like you, it's that you weren't suitable for the role, or that role wasn't suitable for you. And with that, I'd like to kind of pass it to Mo, who has a good story on this.
Okay, yeah, I have a good story on that. It's a little bit long, but I'm gonna share it with you because I think it's valuable. So when as I said, the way that I got this job was through networking. So I met a recruiter of Salesforce at UNSW Career Fair, and she invited me for the first networking night, and then an interview after that. And the first interview was for a role which was business development associate, and it's pretty much sales. So I did the first interview, and I wasn't that interested in sales, but I just wanted to get the job at the time. And I wasn't thinking, I love the company a lot. And I was like, okay, I get this job and then make my way to the next job. I would find a way to do something else in the company. But then I did the first interview and I didn't get the role. So I asked for feedback and I followed up, and I would say always follow up and do it nicely, as Manish said, because follow up is the way that you show them that you're actually interested. And when I followed up, they said that based on your interview, we don't really think that you are interested in sales. But we have other opportunities at Salesforce. We have solution engineering. We have this and this that you might be interested. And then they invited me to the second networking night, which was for the role that I'm having now, which is solution engineering. So I went to the second networking night. I loved the role and I applied for that. I applied for the graduate role for solution engineering, but then I didn't get the graduate role, which was like for it's a permanent role, and it's the graduate role is for 1 year, and then you continue as a solution engineer. They offered me an internship for 2 months because they wanted to make sure my background wasn't relevant and I didn't have any experience. They wanted to make sure that I actually liked this job. And then if I am really interested and it's something that I want, they will offer me the graduate role. And then in the end, I get the graduate role. But my point is, if you don't get something, sometimes it means that it's not a perfect fit for you. And sometimes there is a reason and behind that. And it's better for you to spend your time and learn about the reasons that you don't get that than just get disappointed and give up on looking for the job. So I'm really happy that they didn't give me that job in the first place and they guided me to the next one, because I loved the second one and it wasn't really wise. And when you're under pressure, you make some decisions that might not be for your benefit in the end. So don't piss off when you don't get the job. There are sometimes a reason for that. And I would say the recruiters are really good at what they're doing and they really know what they're after. So don't get it so hard on yourself.
Absolutely. Well said, Mahi. Rebecca, have you had any major disappointments along the way and what did you learn from them? I mean, Moe has just pretty much answered that question, but what about yourself?
I haven't really. I think maybe it was more self-doubt. I think when you come towards the end of your degree and you haven't really lined anything up, a lot of people start to just panic. And I think that was me as well. But not disappointments, I wouldn't say, no.
Okay. What about you, Anthony? I mean, obviously the loss of that military one that you wanted so badly, that was a sting.
Yeah, I mean, you got to take those sort of things in your strides, really. And, you know, I guess I definitely agree with what Moe was saying too, how, you know, things don't work out, you know, actually it's actually not a bad thing. And I tend to look at, say, a failed interview as a good chance to get experience for the next job that you're going to get. You know, and that's definitely, you know, actually I was offered 2 positions. The first one, I was in a position where I could knock it back because I knew this other one was simmering away on the side there. And, you know, I had to make that call to do that. But also along the way, you know, I had some knockbacks, but those interviews that I had along the way prepped me for the next jobs that I was offered. So, you know, you don't look at being knocked back as a bad thing, really. You look at it as an opportunity to have gained interview experience because, again, like I was saying with networking, interviewing is also a skill. And I won't go too much into that, but, you know, I have quite a lot of experience with interviewing where at a stage in my career, I was going to interviews just for the experience, even though I had a job that I was comfortable and safe in. And interestingly, I always got offered the jobs that I wasn't interested in. So, you know, that's what I mean. It's a skill that you practice it well enough, you know, you master it, it's going to work to your advantage. And of course, you know, having a good understanding on how to communicate the skills that you have that relate to what skills they need is paramount too.
Look, I would say, again, this is mostly about you guys, but when you're young, everything seems so important. This relationship, this job, this whatever. If I get this, then I will be happy. But when you get to be old and bald and slightly tubby, you come to realize that you go down one path and you'll be happy. You go down a different path and you'll be happy. The happiness doesn't come from the path. It comes from you.
Yeah.
I'd also say that being knocked back is, like as I said before, is not necessarily a bad thing, because whenever you don't get the job or you're disappointment because something didn't work out, you'll always learn something from it. Like, I can only speak from my honest, which didn't really work out for me. But I still gained so much like experience from it, how to deal with people, and yeah, it's always a life lesson learned, I think.
But since we're talking about interviews, let's talk about a couple of, now we've had, Tim has asked, was there any interview questions that caught you off guard? And I was going to ask a very similar question. You know, was there a particular interview question that you looked back, you wish you'd answered differently or better? Mohi, while I've still got you,
I think
'cause
Well, I can't really think of any exact one, but on my first interview after I didn't get the BDA role, they asked me, what do you want to do in next 5 years? This is such a typical interview question, but because this is something that you have to actually tailor your answer to this question based on the role that you're applying. So, and you need to really think through it when you want to give the answer to this question. But for that role, because I wasn't seeing myself doing sales in the next 5 years, I couldn't answer this question very well.
Yeah.
So it was, although it's a typical interview questions, but it's a really important one.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So Rebecca, what about yourself? What interview question caught you off guard?
I don't think it was a particular question, but for me, it was just the very first question they asked. I was so nervous that I answered it really short, and then afterwards I thought about it and I was like, oh, I should have answered that differently. So I think even if there is a question that you don't answer well, like for me, it was the first question because I was so nervous. Don't beat yourself up about it. Just like move on to the next question that they ask you and, try to do better.
Absolutely. Now, while I've got you, I'm going to swing to another question that's been asked from the floor. And it says a lot of jobs require strong experience in analytical methods, HPLC, MS, so on. So I think I'm not eligible when I apply for a position. Do you have any advice on the matter? Well, Rebecca, I mean, you went out there, you got experience. So did you, Anthony. And of course, Manish and Mohi were both doing PhDs. So you probably would have had hands-on experience with the analytical. But Rebecca, getting experience.
Well, in my current role, I'm developing methods and I validate them. So for me, that's really important. But I think in other positions, like if you're just a lab technician, you don't need to know those skills in really well. Obviously, if you can acquire them yourself and you can, increase your knowledge about it, it's helpful for future jobs. But usually it is like that they will teach you on the job as well. They don't expect you to know everything. So if you have a basic knowledge of how LCMS or HPLC works, that's enough for them. They won't send you to the instrument by yourself and be like, just do this yourself. They will teach you. So I think, they know that you're coming from a bachelor and that you have basic experience. They're not expecting you to, move the world for them.
Just be aware that when somebody says that in the job ad, be prepared to answer questions about it. These guys all know that I deliberately put AAS experience preferred in my job ads as a trap for students, because if they call me and they haven't looked it up, I know not to employ them. But look, there are ways. I mean, Rebecca, you went out, you got a job with Envirolab, and Envirolab. Did you not, Rebecca? I think you got a job with Envirolab, didn't you? Oh, you've lost power. Okay. Anthony, you went and got experience at university. You got experience at university with one of the analytical groups there, and that was just a way of getting experience, right?
Yeah, that's right. And look, in the particular job I got to, they specifically asked for experience in the field of explosives, and I didn't have that. But for me, it was more about doing the preparation, and you've pushed this. You got to get out there and do the reading. And when I got in the interview, they said, "So why do you want to work at explosives?" And I explained to them why. I said, "I find the chemistry really interesting." And then they said, "Tell us a bit about what you know about explosives." So they went straight into the show us you know something. But you know what? I didn't actually know a lot. But what I did explain to them, well, you know what? I did a bit of reading and then I recognized this, and this, and these are the problems and blah, 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 blah. So I have a bit of an understanding, but I also tried to focus more on demonstrating that I'm actively out there learning for myself. So that's key. That's really key for them. They want to see that you can go and teach yourself in many cases, and that's a lot of what research is about. Research, you don't have people to hold your hand to spoon feed you everything you need to know. You've got to be proactive in your own right.
Mohi, when you were at university, did you also get some external experience, or was it just your PhD that you were doing? I mean, a PhD requires so much of your attention, it's hard to get outside experience.
Not really. I was joining some of the clubs at university, and I was also doing some experience outside uni, like in Ansto, but it wasn't a job. So it was just research.
Hey, experience is experience.
Yes.
Now, Mohi, I know you need to leave, so I'm going to thank you very much for your participation. We really appreciate you helping us out tonight. And we wish you every success with your career. I know that you're going to stay in contact.
Yeah, just with that, I just want to tell everyone, if you have any question about my role at Salesforce, just send me an email or message me at LinkedIn. I'm happy to have a chat with anyone if they have any question. I think that I can help them.
Absolutely.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
All right.
Okay, so Manish then, where in your opinion is the best place to search for jobs?
Sorry, what was that?
I said, where in your opinion is the best place to search for jobs?
I think, so I had a bit of a mixed experience with this, and I don't think there's one best place to look for jobs. Network is obviously a huge one. It's very, it's a huge advantage. I mean, you not only get to meet someone who knows a bit about you, knows what you might like, so they can recommend something to you, but they're also an in to that, like an easier in to that job. I looked on everything. So I looked on LinkedIn, I looked on Glassdoors, Seek. I think LinkedIn was one of the biggest things for me. It was really good to build my network on LinkedIn. It was good to kind of look for jobs. And then I always went to Glassdoors in the end to find what people were saying about the company, what people that are in the role felt about it.
Absolutely. Now, Rebecca, we can't hear you at the moment, so I won't ask you any questions at the moment. But Anthony, look, as I look around, the people who are here, Anthony, your position was not advertised.
Correct, that's right. Wasn't even an active position.
Rebecca's position was not advertised, and Manish, I know that they do, that Salesforce only does very limited advertising. It doesn't do widespread advertising. It sort of does a word of mouth based advertising. So it's really important to understand that only a fraction of jobs are actually advertised out there. And so you have to cast a much wider net than just looking on Seek.
Yeah.
Now, we've got a couple of questions from the floor. Rebecca, wave if you can hear us. No, in fact, Rebecca is frozen right now. Otherwise, she's just being very, very still. Okay. Haley has asked, how do we reach out to a recruiter?
I think that's... No, you go for it. Okay. I think that's probably the easiest thing to do, really. I mean, there are so many scientific job recruiters out there. You really just have to contact them on, get onto LinkedIn, or even, just Google search scientific recruiters and contact us. It's actually pretty straightforward. See, their business is centered around finding good quality applicants for positions they have. And I mean, I think, Dave, you can probably answer this one better than us. You know this business better. But really, I had no problem connecting with recruiters. You literally just, contact us, LinkedIn, whatever you can, and they will be chasing you down because they need you. So just remember that.
Yeah, look, it's important. A lot of people show disrespect for recruiters. They seem to think that it's a bottom-feeding job in some way. But a recruiter is part of an ecosystem, and they can be enormously valuable and powerful to you if you treat them in the right way. So yeah, by all means, networking events. I mean, for instance, there'll be a couple of recruiters at our event on June 24th, right? And that's the ideal time to meet them. But yeah, reaching out, there's just nothing better.
I think just the only thing I would add to that is take advantage of every in-person event you can do, like careers days at universities, because when they have those events, a lot of the people behind those stalls, they'll either be hiring managers or recruiters. And those people, as Dave mentioned, they're there to help you. So if you have a good impression with them, they like you. Not only can they give, like, pass on a good word to the hiring manager, but they can also mentor you and guide you through the process. So tell you what kind of questions to expect, advise you on kind of expectations and things like that. So I'd say, yeah, do what Anthony and Dave said. Go to Careers Days, go to LinkedIn, connect with them. And more often than not, they want to be able to help you because, I mean, it helps towards their number in the end.
Yeah. Now, somebody's asked on the floor, what's the best way to bounce back from bad grades? Will an average GPA hurt your chances? No. Nobody cares, right? Nobody is going to ask, what were your grades? Maybe in your very, very, very first job, but it's a bit like your HSC or whatever the equivalent is called these days. By the time you finish your degree, nobody cares what you got. Hell, by the time you finish first year, nobody cares what you got in the HSC, right? You get into the workforce and you show your skills. Now, just out of curiosity, out of the three of you, how many of you were asked about your grades?
Yeah, none of us. No.
It's becoming less and less common, because it's about the person, not about the grades.
Great.
If I'm completely honest, though, I think the only time where it might impact you is when you're applying for jobs at your huge companies like PwC, Deloitte, those kinds of places, where they don't care about the individual person. They are sorting through 20 to 30,000 applicants. They literally are just trying to get a pool of people to get to know face to face. But if you apply for anything else where they might receive 10, 100 or 500 applicants, they're not going to care about it as much. They care more about you, that you're suitable for the role and that you want the role.
I think it also depends on what your experiences. So like saying, you have been part of the mentoring program or you are part of the RACI, that's something that shows self-initiative. So that already gives you a positive impression. And then also if you can get a job like a lab technician, for example, at a university, that's also a really good sign.
And as well, where companies use things like GPA and grades to try and filter through applicants because they get so many, like Manish said, this is where the value of your networking skill and your practice comes into play, because you essentially shortcut that part of the process where you're a piece of paper. Instead of being a piece of paper, you're a face. And, if you want to know how do you overcome it, build your network.
It's like we've got a theme going tonight. Okay, the last of the questions we currently have from the floor is, how can you use your interests outside of chemistry to make you a better chemist? Can a chemistry education help you get jobs outside of the industry? Well, firstly, I would say only a fraction of people who study chemistry will actually do chemistry as a career. There's such a wonderful variety of jobs out there that chemistry and science is useful and builds you to be a better employee, but doesn't, they're not chemistry jobs, right? But interests outside of chemistry. Guys, Anthony, you look like you got something to say.
Usually do, but it's actually a pretty hard question. I'm a strong believer that chemistry is one of the degrees that everyone should do, and that I personally feel that my life outside of chemistry is better for having studied chemistry. So I don't know if it works both ways or not, but that's kind of my perspective on it there. I just feel that chemistry has become an important part of my life, and it in turn changes the way you approach everything in life, and that can affect every outcome in everything you do. Yeah.
Well, Rebecca, you obviously have lots of interests outside of chemistry. I've seen you riding the motorbike. You speak German, so you obviously have a love for strudel. Now you're currently muted at the moment, by the way, so I'm going to unmute you there. What do you say about how does interest outside of chemistry enhance your career?
I think having different interests shows the employer that you're versatile. So I think that's something really important because it also shows your creativity. So, like if you're someone who can play an instrument, for example, it takes a lot of patience and practice to be able to play an instrument. So, doing different things just shows
what skills other besides chemistry like you have and that you can contribute to your workplace. And that's very important.
I absolutely agree, with the caveat, unless you're a drummer. All right, Manish, what do you wish you knew before your job search? Oh, hang on, you're still muted. There you go. Right, yep.
Thanks for that. I think for me, what I wish I knew before I went for the job search, I wish I had kind of put more effort into getting experience outside of chemistry. So kind of reverse to the question. And in terms of what the second half of that question, like, does the chemistry education help you for a job outside of industry? Absolutely. Like, everything you learn, regardless of what degree, what like skill, everything's transferable. So I did chemistry for 8 years. Everything I learned is transferable, except obviously, HPLC, NMR. Like, I'm never going to do that again. But everything I learned and how to think about problems, how to work as a team, everything was transferable. And I think the one thing I wish I had done a bit more in terms of leading up to a job search was maybe do an internship and outside to see where other passions could be. And I think the one thing I have learned is to be open to opportunities. I may be closed to something now because I've never considered it for myself, but then if I give it a go, I might love it, and I might love it more than what I'm doing now. And so it's always to be open to these opportunities and give them a go. But I didn't have a lot of time during my PhD to kind of take an internship in industry or get an experience, summer job somewhere else. But I think that's something I wish if I went back, I would do that more. I would try to get experience, in different places, different jobs. Not only would that give you skills and add to your resume, but it also kind of helps you find what you want. And I think for me, that was the hardest thing, finding exactly what I wanted to do.
Well said. Well said. Anthony, Rebecca?
I can just add to what he has said, like in terms of doing internships, if you can do an internship, like financially, I'd highly recommend doing an internship, because that's how I got my first job in the industry, just because they saw how I worked and they really liked it, so they offered me a job. And besides that, it increases your network.
Yeah. True, and there are also opportunities to acquire new skills along the way. You may not be as skilled as you need to be to get your first dream job, but you need to get the skills to get that job. Through your undergraduate degree, take as many opportunities to do extracurricular research in the labs with the academics. I did that, and that was how I go to my interview, and they say, how is it possible that you used all these instruments? I said, well, because I did all this extracurricular research work. I did, I knew how to do TLC plates, HPLC, NMR, GPC, all these things. They just couldn't believe it. It's because I took the initiative to go out there. So while you still have the chance, get out there. You don't have to be an expert at using the instrument if you're going for that job. You're familiar with it, you know how it works. It might take you a little bit to get back in the groove of things, but you've been exposed to these things. You know how to adapt and learn new things. That's the most important thing. As long as you can demonstrate that, you'll be fine.
All right. So while I've got you then, what's your best tip for being successful in a job interview?
Preparation, really, I think, is hands down the best thing. And I think you framed it this way, and this sort of, leading into the job interview too, currently you don't have a job, you're not making an income. How much work are you prepared to put into something that's going to net you a job that's going to give you an income? Or preparation is where you're going to win that. And learn about the company, learn about the background that is necessary to answer the questions that they may potentially answer, preempt the questions they might be asking you, but more importantly, learn about the company. If you have an opportunity to show them that you've put in the work to learn about them and be the best version of you at that interview, then you've got the best chance of winning that job.
Well said. Manish, what's your secrets to success in a job interview?
I think honestly, it's just preparation. Same as exactly what Anthony said. Yeah, just one thing is, and Dave's repeated this multiple times. Look at the resume, look at the job description, look at what they want, know a bit more about the company, and be genuinely curious. So once you're prepared for that, then ask questions, find out more, make sure, yeah, it's just preparation. And I think also going back to, I think it was Tim's question about kind of the interview question as well, go through some different practice questions. So typically companies will ask very similar questions. They ask role-based questions to see your past performance in that, similar experience or situation would likely be an indicator of what it would be. That's kind of what they do. So they ask those kind of questions like, what's your biggest failure, and tell us what you would do differently, or things like that. And that would probably be the one that threw me off. But, just practice those questions. And if you're part of the mentoring program, practice with your mentor. Ask them to practice an interview with you. And honestly, it's just being able to answer these questions. And sometimes take a second to answer. I sit on a lot of interviews myself now. And it's very different to see how other people or interviewees answer compared to the interviewers. When I was in that position, I did the exact same thing. I got asked a question and I answered it straight away because I was nervous. But it's fine to take, a second, breathe, think about it, and then answer it.
Absolutely. Now, I will note for everybody at home that we do have a webinar on August 8th, which is all about behavioural-based interviewing and exactly what Manish was just talking about a moment ago. Okay, last question of the night, unless we get anything from the floor. And I'm going to come to you first, Rebecca. What do you think that everyone should know while they're still at university?
If you study chemistry, for example, you don't have to stay in chemistry if you don't enjoy it. Be prepared for what's going to come. So just, build your network, look up, if possible, what jobs are out there. You don't just have to be a lab technician. There's other opportunities. And don't start something without thinking about it beforehand, whether that's really what you want to do. Don't start a PhD because that's what everyone else does. Take your time. It's okay to take your time, but don't do something that you don't want to do.
Excellent advice. Anthony?
Yeah, so adding to that, I'm going to throw networking out there again and then talk about that for a second. But remember that, the first day of university is the first day you get to build your professional network. Just remember these people that are going to be your friends, maybe future colleagues, maybe a future connection that might be the most important step in your career. So just remember that, but don't treat everyone like there's some sort of business connection, but just remember that everyone you meet from that day forward is going to play an important part in your life moving on.
Yeah. You don't have to be friends with everyone, but you have to be friendly.
Exactly.
Manish, final word of the evening to you.
I think I'm going to go on a lighter note because I think you've all touched on everything that would be important. But I think we're young, so don't get caught up in the stress of I need to find a job. If it takes a few months, it takes a few months. You're young and you're just figuring out where you're going now. So enjoy it. Take time to have fun and try new opportunities out, but be open to new opportunities because you never know what you're going to find that you like more or not. And we're still finding every day what we want to do in the future. So have fun and be open to opportunities.
That's all very well said. Well, thank you very much, everybody. Last chance from the floor to ask a question. I don't see anything else coming through. All right, going. All right, well, tonight has been another event as part of the RACI Careers Development Program. Through webinars, networking events, mentoring, lectures, and workshops, the RACI Careers Development Program aims to help graduating students get the best possible start in your careers. Thanks to everyone who has joined tonight's webinar. Our upcoming events include a webinar on the 11th of July called What I Wish I Knew at the Beginning of My Career. All right, that'll be from people who are like me, getting a little long in the tooth. And another one on the 8th of August called Star Stories, Being Prepared for Behavioural-Based Interviews. We hope that we'll see you again for those soon. In the meantime, all of our thanks to the presenters tonight, Mohi Karam, Rebecca Vogel, Manish Ririam, and Anthony Katselis. You guys have all done a great job. You know, we're really proud. You know, we and the other mentors are really proud of all of you, and we very much look forward to a couple of years from now when you come back and be mentors in the program yourselves. So thank you, each and every one of you, and it's been a really great evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dave.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Okay.